that was a very good talk, Jane. Even though you got my name wrong, it's okay. So, I wish Zen Master Hae Kwang were here answering questions, but you're stuck with Hae Kwang. But we're not making anything about it. And uh, your talk reminded me of another teacher of Zen Master Sung San, mirror mind. That the mind, is like a clear mirror. So red comes red, white comes white. Someone is hungry, give them food. Someone is thirsty, give them drink. So a mirror doesn't hold on to anything. The object before it disappears, the mirror is perfectly clear. Also, a mirror is never moved by anything. It just reflects everything, no problem, no matter what it is. So mirror mind. But you were saying just the same thing and very eloquently. So thank you very much for your talk. And does anyone have a question?
I actually have, well, I hope this is okay. Just one quick question for Jane and then one quick question for you, Stan, if I may. Real quick, Jane, where do you have the sources of those quotes handy? I'd love to read. Those are wonderful quotes, and I'd love to read the full text of those. Um, if I don't want to make you dig through stuff, that's okay.
Well, you know what I did? I Googled, but I can't remember what I Googled. One was from a 2002 article on Tricycle magazine, Tricycle.
Mhm.
One was from Lion's Roar. One was from one of Zen Master Song Song's books. I just sort of dug them
Sure.
up back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No worry. No worry. Well, I got it all. Yeah. I won't. I'll try not to hold on to it. I'll just sort of, no. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for your wonderful talk. Um, and yeah. Uh, um, so Stan, I had a question about just a real practical question. When you sit down to meditate and you just can't stop your mind, when it's just one of those days, where your mind is just your monkey mind just keeps going and going and going, and is is there a good strategy that you could recommend for trying to just recalibrate one's mind, and just kind of to bring your focus to the present? Or is the answer that you just keep doing your meditation for that day, doing your great question or following your breath or whatever that is, and just continuing to try to bring back your mind? That's my question.
Yes, there are some techniques. The first is to slap yourself in the face really hard. You might try that. Um, but another thing that you can do that's a little less violent to your system, whatever your practice is, I assume you're using your breath. And what you can do is simply, when your technique doesn't seem to be working and your mind is just all over the place, then just the breath and really, really strong. So a very deep, very slow, complete inhalation, almost heroically. And then hold the breath, not for too long, but really hold the breath. And then a very long, complete exhalation. And keep doing that. In fact, it's not a bad idea simply to make that your meditation practice. And maybe if you do, in conjunction with whatever else you're doing, maybe what am I, don't know, or some mantra. Um, but to keep the breath very strong. Now, it's certainly not necessary to do this, but you asked me what I've found effective, and I found that to be very, very effective. So you might want to you might want to try that.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
And let me know how it goes, would you?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question?
So, Bond was asking kind of about this monkey mind, and your mind's all over the place.
Yeah.
But what if somebody has maybe experienced some sort of traumatic event, and it's this one thing that is stuck? Would you recommend that same breathing
Uh,
exercise, or maybe something different?
did you say dramatic or traumatic? I didn't quite understand.
Traumatic, like somebody who's experiencing PTSD and they maybe have an event that has happened and it's just replaying the same event,
Yeah,
replaying this over and over and over.
yeah. I would still recommend breath in my experience. I actually haven't had any kind of trauma like that, but um, I think all of us have experienced our entire life as some kind of trauma, or we wouldn't be practicing Zen. Something brings us, to this practice, some kind of strong experience, and strong emotions are triggered by you know, experiences like that. And so some kind of calming is necessary. So shamatha practice, some kind of calming practice. And I really do think that the best kind of calming practice is, not some kind of, really extreme breathing, but something that you can do without really strong effort. And in fact, you should never put that kind of strong effort into breathing. No one sitting next to you should be able to hear you breathe, no matter what your technique. But slow and calm. And I've found, and other people I've talked to have found, that emotions really are calmed by this kind of breathing, and that it is, very effective. In conjunction with the breathing, um, the choice of a mantra, I think, might make a difference. So, we have an endless supply of mantras. Uh, as you probably know, I've settled on one that I've found to be very effective for me. And I think it's worth really experimenting, with different mantras, or perhaps no mantra. Uh, you have to find out what works for you. And it's best, I think, to um, conduct these experiments, if you want to call them that, these different techniques in consultation with the teacher. And it might not be that the teacher has a whole lot of wisdom about this, but it simply helps to talk to someone with a lot of experience and who cares a lot about this practice, and cares a lot about you as a practitioner, and that kind of relationship maintained, I think, you know, can really help. So those are my initial thoughts about that anyway. So thank you for your question.
Stan, this sort of is related to Ali's question and to what you just said too. And I've thought about this, and maybe I've even asked you personally about it, but it's coming to mind again. This idea of therapy and Zen. I've, over the years, I used to go quite consistently to therapy, but since I've had this deepening practice, I find less of a need to engage in sort of talk therapy. But having said that, I do wonder sometimes what's that handshake between therapy and a Zen practice. The coexistence of the two and the helpfulness of each in their own modalities. And I certainly am not trying to say you don't need talk therapy anymore just because you have a Zen practice. But I'm curious of your thoughts about that, or Zen Master Sung Sung's thoughts about if he ever had an opinion about talk therapy and its usefulness. Thanks.
Yes, I don't know that Zen Master Sung San ever had much to say about that, but I'm pretty sure he would have not had any problem with that. So one of his first students, first to get Inca, first to get transmission, was Richard Schrobe, who is a Gestalt therapist. And I'm sure Zen Master Sung San knew that, and so had no hesitation in giving him Inca and transmission. Um, Richard Schrobe has several books, um, and in these books at various places, he talks a little bit about his experience as a therapist. I don't know, maybe Judy, you remember? It's 2 or 3 books, isn't it, that Richard has? Um, 3 books, yeah. And Elegant Failure is the one title I really remember, and it's a reference to the story about Manjushri, who cannot awaken this woman who's in samadhi, and he does all sorts of things and takes her up to the Tushita heaven and still can't do it. And he asks Buddha, why can't I, awaken this woman? He says, uh, yeah, well, way down, you're a high class bodhisattva, but way down beneath 10 million worlds is this low class bodhisattva called ensnared light. And boom, immediately ensnared light appears, snaps his fingers once, and the woman is awakened. So the failure, how elegant Manjushri's failure. And I think, and certainly that's where Richard got that title. But I've often thought it has, some reference to his practice, as a therapist, and his practice, his own practice as a Zen practitioner and teacher. So many, many different techniques. Some work, some don't. But the effort is always to be admired, and it is as much the effort as the technique. So yes, our school has no problem with people doing any kind of therapy that might help while practicing Zen, and certainly do not consider sitting on a cushion the only form of awakening, for that matter. And I think in therapy, you can come to realizations that you probably couldn't come to any other way. So I have a high regard myself for talk therapy, and I'm not well enough acquainted with the various forms of therapy to say, yeah, they're all good. I suspect some are maybe not so good. um, but yeah, no problem, no problem with therapy. But thank you for your question again. And maybe time for one short question and one brief response, if there is any kind of question still. And that's just fine. Thank you all very much. And we'll move on to our next practice.